And look, when they don't have European football to worry about during the week, that's an extra. And one of the things Amorim has bemoaned as one of the excuses is time to work with his players. But he's getting more time this season to work with his players than most other managers or he's had before. So when the results don't come, your excuses kind of dry up and start falling on deaf ears. Look, I don't know what he has to achieve this year to keep the Wolves from the door, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe came out, 3 months ago, whatever it was, 2 months ago, and said, we're going to give this guy 3 years, ridiculous statement. But that was made by one of the big investors at the football club, 1.25 billion or whatever Ineos have injected into the club, allegedly, in terms of, buying shares and buying players. But I don't know what the end game is for the manager in terms of what the board see as good enough to be sitting down at a board meeting and saying, this is what we've achieved this year, this is how we're moving in the right direction, and this is the way forward. At the moment, it is very stale, very stagnant, very stale, very much the same most weeks. Every now and again, they have the odd one where they're a bit better, and then they fall back into this sort of mire of mediocrity, which we saw today in the second half. And Phil's played at Man United, Shaq and I have played against Man United, the teams with the Keanes and all those boys in the 90s and the late 90s. The standards United are setting at the moment are just unacceptable. They're just unacceptable for most elite football clubs. And the manager's going to have to start getting better results. At the end of the day, this is all going to boil down to results. And the results, we saw a graphic there, the results he's had from just over 1 year in charge are not good enough and they're not sustainable. So he's going to be under pressure over the next, 2 or 3 months to make sure these results improve, where he can go to Ratcliffe and Barada and Wilcox and others and say, look, we're progressing, this is what we're doing and we're getting better. If it continues the way it is, he can't go with an argument to say they're moving forward, because at the moment, to me, they are stagnating.
But here's the counter to that. Kind of given the Ten Hag situation and how they manage that, it's an easy sell, apparently, to this ownership group that have done enough, given the fact that they extended Ten Hag after winning the FA Cup, and we all know how that played out. And then again, if you, at the start of this season, you said what was minimum for Manchester United, you would say that they have to get into the top 6, have to get into the Europa League and threaten the top 4. And now, while we're talking about, a United on the back of this poor result, I have a feeling that the top 2, maybe the top 3, will distance themselves from the rest of the pack pretty soon. And after that, everything, they're going to be rather congested. And that will, again, provide an argument for Ruben Amorim as to how good they were or how they've improved. Now, to that point, as critical as we have been of Manchester United today, had they beaten 10-man Everton, as they should have, given how long United play with 10 men, had they beaten West Ham at home, as they should have, given how poor West Ham are, all of a sudden we're talking about Manchester United joined third with Villa. And that's how thin these margins are outside of, what I expect to be top 2, top 3. And that may give Amorim enough of an excuse that even if they don't get into Europa League, they miss up by a point, maybe 2. And all of a sudden, again, kind of given the ownership group and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and how soft they've been on previous managers, maybe that argument again washes, which in truth it shouldn't.
If those results had gone their way, that would have been smoke and mirrors. Villa have won something like 8 in the trot, or something like that. And they got a really good manager. I mean, they got a good squad. They haven't got the best squad, but they got a really good manager. They got a top manager in Unai Emery, right? He's flexible. He has a clear plan. Players know what. If you don't do what Unai Emery wants, then you're not in the team. If United finish 7th or 8th, or wherever it is around there, not many people are going to bat an eyelid. I mean, maybe the board will, but I'm just saying from the perspective of people who understand the game, if they were to finish around that 7th or 8th position, or we'd sit here and say, yeah, I can see that. I can see that, because that's kind of where they are. But my point is, that's not good enough for a club that size and a club that has spent that amount of money and a manager who's been brought in to improve the team. When we talk about improving a team, you talk about Unai Emery at Aston Villa. You talk about, although they had a bad result at Leeds, Enzo Maresca has certainly taken this Chelsea side to another level. Whatever level that's going to be at the end of it remains to be seen. But the way they played against Arsenal, they've shown they can play better football. And there are several managers like that within the league. Ruben Amorim is yet to show, if we're being honest about it, he is yet to show that he's got the ability to take United to another level, the level that they need to be back in amongst the elite. And so that, for me, piles a lot of the pressure onto the manager.
Do you think he is the right man to take United forward, Phil?
Look, results will determine that, as you said just then. It's a results business game. It's a ruthless game. You look at Liverpool at the minute; they're on a really poor, sticky run, and all of a sudden there's shouts and claims that Arne Slot should get the sack after winning the Premier League last year. So, look, results will be determined by that. I think the board have made it clear that they're sticking by him, that he's the right man to take the club forward. They like where they're going. But yeah, results have to change for sure. It's not been good enough. I mean, I remember when I was playing that, post for Sir Alex Ferguson era, we were saying under David Moyes that, after post-match interviews, it was always, we're in transition, we're a transition team right now. We need to regain a little bit of stability back in the club, and it seems to be, spiraling 10 years down the line. We're still in transition, so they need to try and get away from that stigma and try and figure it out. But it's difficult at the minute. It's really difficult, the club. Results are hard to come by. Every game you're thinking, can they, can't they? You win one game or you lose one game, you're looking over your shoulder thinking West Ham's a difficult game when it shouldn't be a difficult game. It's tough at the minute.
But that's the interesting thing as well with Phil, because he's obviously been there when Sir Alex was there and afterwards.
I was just going to ask Phil, we've all, Shaq, myself and Phil played the game, right? Have you ever worked with, Phil, or seen a manager who has been less flexible in his system or less flexible in making changes and very stubborn in the way he plays? I would imagine most managers you played under had at least a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about managers. Maybe I would say Louis van Gaal was very rigid, very his way or no way. But he did have the ability to change, and what we did before games, and the day before a game, I remember doing 11v11, and it was always about the players and how they felt in the system. And if the centre half stepped in, how did he feel about stepping in? Did you feel vulnerable? Did you feel like you could go and get there? It was always a collective, collaborative decision with the players, and I think the players embraced that. Not sure how much the players have an influence in that today. But yeah, certainly he's very, very rigid. He's not going to change for no one. That's what he's been brought in to do. So I guess he's looking at it from, well, why would I change? That's what I got brought in to do. That's the system I got brought into play. So I'll try and get the players to see. I mean, I think I said it a few weeks ago. I look at the system they're playing. They've got, if you run through the team quickly, you've got Luke Shaw playing left of a back three when his first position is probably left back. You've got Diogo Dalot at times playing left wing back when he's probably a right back. You've got Bruno Fernandes playing as a 6 when his best position probably is a 10. You've got Amad Diallo playing right wing when he's probably a 7 or 11 in most teams. So yes, he's trying to get the best out of players, but maybe playing these players in probably the second or third best suited position.
So just to go back to the fact,
Must be a Dutch thing with the
maybe a Dutch thing
with the stubbornness, because I played under Wim Jansen at Celtic and we lost the first 2 games of the season, and we had this big meeting and we all told him what way we wanted to play, and he listened to everybody, and then he told us how we were going to play. Anyway, but to that point, this is one of the things that surprised me, and I brought this up 2 or 3 months ago at the start of the season. Phil mentioned Bruno Fernandes' position. When you go out and buy Mbeumo, Sesko and Cunha, certainly Mbeumo and Cunha, who can play a little bit behind and off a striker, and particularly Matheus Cunha, who is a good player, but you have Bruno Fernandes, and I feel that I'm going over the coals here with this one and repeating myself. But when you have a player with Bruno Fernandes' ability in the final third to score great goals, to produce great assists, to produce great crosses and passes, why in God's name are you going and spending the money on players of a similar ilk and then having to push Bruno Fernandes back into a deeper position beside two guys, well, one in Ugarte that's not good enough, and another one in Casemiro, who's just been one of the best in the business, but can't really do it anymore to the level that he was once doing it. Why would you push Bruno Fernandes back there and spend that money rather than spending it in that position and keeping Bruno Fernandes further forward? Now, I hear people out there, people who just look at a bit of paper. Bruno Fernandes got the most stats, got the most assists. Bruno Fernandes got the most this. They'll give you an assist stat for anything these days. You only got to look at the ball and give you an assist stat. Right, Bruno Fernandes, it's not even up for debate. He would be much better for Manchester United floating in and around that front line, where he can get the ball in those little spaces and get turned, poke those little balls through, those little delicate balls and clip balls in behind. So it just doesn't make sense from that perspective. So there are players playing out of position. But Ruben Amorim was there in the summer. He had to have been part of those conversations with Wilcox and Barada and others about the type of player that they wanted to bring in. And when you have your skipper playing in a position where he's less effective than he would be if he was 20 yards further up the field, then that's counterproductive to what you want to do.
And when we do go back, though, just to end it here with Phil, and obviously the fact and the point that you did play under Sir Alex Ferguson, he brought you in at Manchester United. You know the distinct before and after. You talked about those early years, it being a transition. So obviously a lot of time's passed since then. How do you explain what's happened to Manchester United since Sir Alex left?
Very difficult again. I mean, we talk about decisions and behind the scenes and on the pitch and players that have been brought in and externally people who've been brought in. I think sometimes in that moment you feel like it's only a little thing, it's only a little decision, it won't make a big difference. But over time, over years, they accumulate into this big scene, this big scenario that's happening at United, and I think we are now seeing maybe the decisions that they probably didn't get right over the last 6 or 7 years. Maybe we're seeing that now, which is why I have some sympathy for the manager. He's only a young coach. He's been brought in from Sporting Lisbon, where he was terrific there as a young manager, won a lot of things. Played a way that and style that he wanted to play, but coming to Man United is a different kettle of fish, and maybe we are seeing the decisions that we didn't get right in the last 6 or 7 years come to the forefront right now. But now we have to make big decisions and get it right, and people have to take ownership of that and make a decision and say, yeah, if it didn't go well, if it's not the right one in a year's, 2 years' time, then I'll hold my hand up and it's my fault. But yeah, it's been an accumulative over 5 or 6 years.
You don't understand. I think people don't understand the influence and the ability to turn the club round, like Sir Alex turned United around. Wenger did it at Arsenal, but maybe this conveyor belt of success that was going to continue was maybe a little pie in the sky. Because why did Sir Alex go to Man United? Because they were a struggling club. They had their success in the 60s or whatever it was, but they'd struggled for many a year. Yeah, there was the odd cup competition, but they were not dominating English football. And Fergie comes in, it took him, what did it take him, 8 years, something like that, from 86. Came close a couple of times apparently to losing his job. It was backed by the board, and then him and David Gill had a great relationship, signed great players. United were successful. They turned over 2 or 3 teams. They had a great academy, which was around about the same time I was playing, when Beckham came through and Neville came through and Scholes and Butt and Giggs. The chances of that happening again are very slim to have that kind of quality of youngster coming through all at the same time. So the fact that he was able to do what he did for 20 to 25 years, I think shows you how difficult it was before for that club to sustain itself as one of the best teams in England. And since he's left, it has shown how difficult it is for this club, no matter what they've spent, to sustain themselves as one of the best teams in England. So it's a and
it's a really interesting situation. The setup is almost ironic, Amorim has this luxury of no European football, so he gets full weeks on the training ground.
Time that other managers would kill for.
Exactly. And yet, The results are being called, what were the words? Stale, stagnant, and unacceptable. It's pretty damning for a club of that stature.
It really is. And all that extra time means the usual excuses are starting to dry up. Sir Jim Ratcliffe might have promised him 3 years.
Allegedly, yes.
But the kind of results we're seeing now, the sources are clear. They're just not sustainable. The pressure is really on.
And it's because the initial goal for the season was so clear. The absolute minimum consensus was, get a top 6 spot.
Right. Secure that Europa League qualification.
And at least be in the conversation for the top 4. That was the line in the sand.
What's so wild to me, though, is how close they actually are, despite everything feeling so wrong. I mean, if they'd just beaten 10-man Everton and a really poor West Ham side,
They'd be joint third with Aston Villa. It's that close.
those razor-thin margins almost mask the deeper problems, don't they?
They do, and that's where the ownership factor comes in. The sources suggest there's this perceived softness from the Ratcliffe group, right? I mean, look at how they extended Ten Hag after that FA Cup win.
That's a great point.
So, Amorim might just survive this. Even if they miss out on Europe by a point or two, the whole bad luck argument could actually work.
Okay, so that's the results pressure. But let's get into the tactical side, because the criticism there is, well, it's relentless. He's being called very rigid.
And not going to change for no one. That stubbornness is leading to some really questionable player decisions.
Like what? What are the main examples?
Well, look at Luke Shaw. He's one of the best traditional left backs in the league, and he's playing on the left of a back 3.
And Diogo Dalot at left wing back when he's clearly a right back.
Exactly. Players are constantly being shoved into their second or third best suited position. It's not working.
And then there's the big one, the tactical puzzle everyone's talking about. Captain Bruno Fernandes, he's being pushed way back to play as a number 6, a defensive midfielder.
And this is just seen as pure managerial stubbornness.
Yeah.
It's completely counterproductive. Bruno is a creative force, a number 10. He's a monster in the final third.
But you lose all of that attacking output.
You lose his primary function. And for what? For a system that isn't delivering anyway.
But the real question the sources are raising isn't just how he's using Bruno, but why the clubs spend their money this way in the first place.
This is the financial paradox at the heart of it. They spend all this money on new forwards. Mbosesco, Kuna, Bemo. All similar high-pressing types.
Right.
Only to take their best creative attacker, Bruno, and pull him backward into a defensive role. It makes no sense.
Especially when that midfield partnership with Casemiro and the other player who's just not good enough, that was the area that needed the investment.
The spending just seems totally at odds with building a balanced team.
Let's zoom out for a second, because this crisis feels, bigger than just this manager. It's a bit depressing, isn't it? The club is still stuck in this transition talk.
10 years of it, since Sir Alex Ferguson left.
And it's not one single thing. The sources say this mess is the result of an accumulation of little decisions.
Little decisions they didn't get right over the last 6 or 7 years. Bad contracts, bad recruitment, changing managers all the time.
Yeah.
We're just seeing it all come to a head now.
And the historical context is so important. I mean, Sir Alex's 2 decades of dominance were a complete anomaly. The club was in a bad state when he took over in '86.
A very bad state. So this idea that the conveyor belt of success would just keep going after he left
Was pie in the sky.
Absolutely. It set an impossible standard. And it proves that the culture and the structure he built were more important than anything else.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for the next few months? The clock is ticking for Amorim.
It is. He's got, maybe 2 or 3 months to show real, tangible progress to the new leadership, to Ratcliffe, Barada, and Wilcox.
The pressure is on for results and for some kind of tactical flexibility.
The problems run so deep, but this new group has to make a big decision somewhere.
So here's the final thought for you to chew on. Given that this mess is rooted in 6 or 7 years of compounded bad decisions, and we know this ownership group can be lenient, what is the one specific big decision this new leadership has to make right now to finally break from that past and stop the stagnation?